All right, good day everyone. So we're still in module 1, which is the PSW Foundation. So now we will be discussing chapter 8, which is managing stress. So it's very important that we know how to manage our stress because especially in the healthcare setting, it might be so stressful for us because of course the hours that we work, usually it's always shift hours. So sometimes we can't really go to our special occasions in the family or even to our close friends because we need to go to work, right? That's a very common one. That's why we feel stress in the workplace. Other things because of our clients' behaviors or even their personalities that sometimes doesn't meet our personalities. So in this chapter, we will be discussing on how to manage that stress. So first and foremost, stress, just for the information of everybody, stress is actually a body's emotional, mental, and physical reaction to change or any pressure at the moment, right? It can be motivating, which is a positive stress, or it could be overwhelming, wherein it will lead to negativity, right? So it's always remember that stress is always a natural process in human lives, right? So every now and then it could be long term or short term, it could be today or tomorrow, there might be always stress that comes in. Okay, just make sure that everyone, for you, one way to really like adopt it or maybe like get through it, always remember that you're not the only one who are experiencing it. Everybody experience stress. Okay, so there are four types of stress. So first is the eustress. This is what we call the positive stress. Uh, it can help you focus or get something in the end through your performances. Like, say, for example, you are, let's say, studying now, PSW, even you are going to work, at the same time, you're going to school or you're listening to the lectures and you have a lot of assignments, deadlines, and all that. It's because at the end of the day, you are aiming to be a certified PSW, right? You want to get that certification. You want to be that legit PSW. It's not just through experience, but also through education, right? So that is actually a good stress. So other one is the negative stress or what we call the distress that leads you to burnout or to anxiety. Like say, like for example, you are going to your workplace, but you're not happy anymore because you don't have the voice in the workplace. You can't really give your opinion and suggestions during uh, whatever is happening in your workplace. Technically, you just do things that you're not actually happy to do. So that is actually a negative stress. So make sure that you know how to manage that and make sure that you know how to conquer that kind of negative stress because that might lead to anxiety and negative emotions and feelings. We also have what we call the acute stress. Acute stress, it's actually a short term reaction or an immediate pressure. Like, for example, something happened to you today, and then because, like, let's say you forgot your meals and you're so hungry, and then you have limited money, and then you can't even afford to buy your lunch, right? But tomorrow that will be fine because you need to bring, you will get paid, okay? Something like that. And you might gonna bring your lunch box and make sure not to forget it. So that is actually a considered acute stress. It's like it's kind of like short term, quick. It's just experiencing it fastly. However, chronic stress, it's an ongoing tension. It could be a long-term challenge. I think best example that I can give you is like, let's say when you are uh, on the uh, on the process of a divorce, right? A divorce. So it could be a long process. There might be a lot of things to consider. There might be a lot of things to talk about, like your rights to your son, to your assets and liabilities, and all that stuff. And yeah, going to the court back and forth, that's a lot, right? So that can lead to chronic stress. So just always remember, guys, whether it's a good stress, whatever of stress it is, it could always be both helpful and at the same time not helpful or harmful for everyone, depending if it could be acute or it could be a chronic stress or it could be a negative or a positive stress, right? That will always depend. how do we cope for burnout? So again, as what we have discussed from the previous slides, when we talk about burnout, that could be the cost for that could be a long-term stress. So that will lead through your emotions, your physical, your mental exhaustion, right? So if you are leading to burnt out, there might be signs and symptoms that you need to watch out for. You make sure you recognize that, right? So make sure that you recognize your early um, signs of burnout. Like, say, for example, you're experiencing fatigue, you cannot sleep, or maybe you're not eating, or it could be you're eating a lot, like doing things not the usual that you do, right? Or you can't make decisions, you get irritated easily. So, those are signs and symptoms of burnt out. So again, the most common source of stress, it could be because of the major life events or changes, like as what I've told you earlier, the divorce. It could be because of a new workload. You have a lot of workload in your workplace that leads to, of course, stress. If you have conflict in the workplace, in your family, or in your closest friends, that can actually give you stress. Uncertainty. You don't know what's going to happen in your life, what tomorrow brings, anything like that, or even your daily frustrations, right? So, again, stress can be both personal and professional. There might be some stress that comes from your personal side. There's also a lot of stress that comes from the professional setting or in the workplace, right? So just make sure, guys, that if you are experiencing that, it's always good that you know how to identify your stress, what is the cause of that stress, so that self-awareness is actually can be very helpful for you to manage your stress, right? Because once you are self-aware, you know what's the cause of it, and you will also know what is the solution of that, right? So that's very simple. It may sound, but it's actually very helpful. So again, every person responds to stress in a different way. Okay, that depends on like the person's personality, the person's life experiences from the past, and also the person's support system, how supportive his or her friends and families, co-workers, and even the person's health. Right? If the person is healthy and you can still manage and managing the stress, then that would be also a positive thing. So the common reactions is what I've told you for stress that it's also a sign of burnout. It could be when you're experiencing fatigue, irritability, and concentrate. You are very concentrated or you are very focused on your problems, right? So again, it's always important that you know your stress or the cause of your stress, being self-aware of that, so that you will also know how you will cope on that specific stress, right? So, self awareness and being familiarized in identifying the cause of your stress is the very point key. So, defense mechanism. We have a lot of defense mechanism that we studied in our since we are since we started school, right? There's a lot if you name it, but the most common ones are, of course, we have the denial. When you are denying into something that, let's say, for example, that you can't accept the fact that something is going on in your life. Projecting, if you are projecting in on something that everything is fine, but I honestly it's not anymore. Rationalization is like maybe you're trying to rationalize things. Oh, why is my husband not, not joining the dinner or whatnot? Maybe because he's so busy, blah blah blah. But deep inside, you already know what's the reason behind, right? So again, defense mechanism. Those are the unconscious reactions that protect us from our unpleasant emotions, right? So defense mechanism is trying to help us balance also somehow, but it's actually not healthy when you keep on doing those defenses. So in terms of having those or being aware of what the different types of defense mechanism, as a PSW, it's very important for us to know those because it's our way to understand also our clients. if they are projecting those defense mechanisms, right? So as the PSW will identify that, oh, okay, I understand why Mrs. Smith or Mr. Smith is saying that because he's having or doing this, right? So again, it's always good that you recognize those mechanisms. It is also a way of you strengthening or making your care or improving your care and empathy to your client, right? So that's also a positive point. So again, as what I have mentioned in terms of managing stress, the effective strategies, of course, first is self-awareness, being self-aware of the stress that you are experiencing. Next is positive thinking, thinking positively that uh, you can conquer this, that you know how to manage the stress, that you can surpass whatever challenges that you may encounter. And also, it's not bad to ask for help if you have strong support system, your friends or families, someone just to listen to what you're going through, or worst case scenario, if you need, someone, a professional help, then don't hesitate to ask for that, right? And also relaxation techniques like simply by having your me time, making sure like you treat yourself, self care, things that makes you happy, things that make you calm. If you want to go to a restaurant alone and just eat your favorite food, if that's gonna be helpful, if you think that's a relaxation technique for yourself, then do so, right? And then limiting yourself into stressors. That's also very important. That if you know, let's say, going to the mall will make you stressed, then don't go to the mall, right? So those things are some of the strategies that you can do to manage your stress. So job burnout is very common in the healthcare setting. It's because of our shift schedule, right? Sometimes our schedule is not fixed. So let's say this week it's day shift, next week it will be evening shift, and then the next week will be a night shift. So that can lead to burnout. Plus, you have a lot of behavioral clients. Plus, you also have like coworker that has an attitude, everything, name it, right? Uh, Once you're experiencing fatigue, irritability, sleep changes, and loss of motivation to go to work, that means you're starting to show that you are having job burnout, right? So it's always good if you want to save the job, make sure to have an open discussion uh, with your, if you have like a counselor in your workplace, or maybe you start with your supervisor or anything like that, or anything that you could ask for help, just to make sure that you are not mentally, emotionally drained, right? Because you want, please always look out for support resources in your workplace first before you go outside, before you go externally. Because most of the healthcare settings, they usually have those resources. So time management, of course, in the healthcare setting, it's very important that you know how to organize your tasks, set your priorities, and make sure you establish a smart goal, right? Every time you do your work, make sure you do it in a smart way. What is SMART? So SMART stands for specific. You need to be very specific. What are the things that you need to do on that shift? You need to be measurable. Make sure that you know how to measure your work through time management. Let's say, for example, I will do my ADLs for every client for 10 minutes, right? Something like that. And achievable, is it achievable to do the ADL for 10 minutes in every client? Is it realistic? Because if there's no shower, you just need to prepare them, get up from bed, change your underpads. That might be realistic and timely. Make sure that, let's say you have 10, so in 10 minutes, also 10 times, so more an hour and 40, 10, 20, 30, an hour and 40, then you will be done with your 10 clients, right? So that's how you set your smart goal. How about decision making and conflict handling? Sometimes it's very important that you know how to make decisions and conflict handling in the workplace. Sometimes it could be through a client or a family of the client, or even to your coworkers, right? So make sure you identify what's the issue, you analyze what is the issue, what's the cause of the issue, why it happened, anything like that, and then you plan. What do you think is the solution of those? How can we fix it? And what are the things that we need to do to improve it? And then make sure you do it into action, right? You do it into action. So, again, it's very important that you will always respect diversity, as what I've told you. Culture comes in here again, that each and every one of you is different, right? So that's why we need to respect each and every one and make sure to address whatever misunderstandings or conflict in a respectful and in a calmly manner. Okay? That's very important. So again, guys, this is just a summary and reflection. Stress is always be a part of our life. Recognize your triggers. What are the things that triggers your stress? And make sure, if you know your triggers, you know the coping mechanisms as well. You know, use your coping skills. And of course, maintain your balance for overall well-being. At the end of the day, we want to have a holistic health. So holistic approach of health. So it's not just the physical, it's not just the emotional, but all the five dimensions, right? So how about you guys? How do you currently manage your stress? So I'll leave that reflection, or I'll leave that question to you, and you can reflect after this lecture. Okay? So that's it for chapter 8. So I'll see you guys again for the next chapter. Have a good day.